Hey, welcome back to Postal BBQ. I'm Jabin Postal, and today at the grill, we're recreating Aaron Franklin's smoked spare ribs, and they're super juicy and delicious. And just like always, I'm gonna put all the show notes for you in the description box below, so make sure to click down there to see everything that you need for this recipe. Also, if you like what we're doing on this channel, consider subscribing for more great barbecue recipes, tutorials, and reviews. Now, other than that, let's get into the cook. So today I want to show you how to make some delicious and smoky spare ribs, but these aren't any spare ribs. This is Aaron Franklin's version and his style method of cooking spare ribs. A few months ago, one of my neighbors gifted me a Masterclass, and obviously one of the first things that I did was went on there and found the Aaron Franklin course and binged watched it from beginning to end. It was really good. And one of the things that he showed in that class is how he smokes his spare ribs. And so I thought I would show you how to do that today. So there actually isn't very much that you need to get started with this recipe. We're gonna be using some spare ribs. This is a full slab of spare ribs. If you wanna use some St. Louis style or baby back, go for it. But this is what we're using today because that's what he used. And so we're just gonna sort of mimic that cook for you today. And so the first thing that we need to do is trim up these spare ribs. And so we're just gonna give a quick visual, just feeling for any bones or unwanted sections. And so right away we have this section here. So I'm gonna take my knife, and we're gonna cut off this bone because really that's all it is. And so underneath right here is some cartilage, and we're just gonna get our knife right on that. I'm gonna press down. There we go, we'll get rid of that. All right, so you'll notice that we're kind of left with a little bit of a triangle. We're gonna deal with that shortly here, but we're gonna just slice off the end of this. I'm gonna just flip it over and find where that last bone is, and we could probably just cut it right there. There we go. And then what we're gonna do is we're just gonna give it a nice shape. And so again, these edges, any of these sharp edges, we're just gonna round out a little bit. And so I'm gonna take this, slice that around that corner a bit. We're going to trim off this whole section because it is thin, and as it cooks it's just going to get tough, and so we'll slice that off anyways. Okay, so the shape on this is looking pretty good, but we're going to address some of this really pillowy fat. We're going to remove a little bit of this. There we go. And so you'll notice we have a little bit on this corner as well. So again, just take your knife and slice a little bit of that off. So this looks really nice. We have great shape. It's trimmed on the top. There's no bones or sharp edges. And so let's flip it over and look at the back side. And so the first thing you'll notice is the skirt right here. And so we're going to remove that entirely. And then for the membrane that's on the back of the ribs, we're gonna leave that on because when you're cooking in a high capacity restaurant, you don't really have time to take that off. And you know, Aaron in his masterclass said that they don't do it at their restaurant. And so we're just gonna leave that on and just keep it the same as what he would normally do. So with our ribs all trimmed up, let's go ahead and make our barbecue rub that we're gonna be using today. And this is exactly Aaron's recipe. It's 1 part kosher salt. We have 2 parts black pepper. And then we're gonna put a little bit of paprika in there just for some color. We'll get that lid on there. Then we're just gonna shake it together. And so this is gonna give us a nice simple flavor to allow the meat and that smoke to really just shine through with this cook. And so what we're gonna do to season this is we're gonna start with a little bit of yellow mustard. We don't need a whole lot. We're just gonna rub that on the backside. And we're gonna start always on the backside and finishing on the top, which is gonna be our presentation side. And then we're gonna apply our barbecue rub. And when we apply it, we wanna go about 8 to 10 inches above the ribs and just carefully apply it. We want a nice even coating on all sections of the ribs because we want the same amount of seasoning with every single bite. And we'll flip it over. Again, we're gonna hit it with that yellow mustard. And like I said, you don't need a whole lot of this mustard. It's just to make it a little bit tacky so our rub has something to stick to. And so again, we're just gonna get that motion 6 to 8 inches above. And so just like that, these spare ribs are all prepared. And so let's go ahead and get the slow and sear kettle ready for cooking. So to set up our grill today, I placed in about 12 briquettes into the corner of the slow and sear, and then I grabbed my sous vide gun by Grill Blazer just to blast those coals until they're fully lit. Once my coals were fully lit, I then filled up the remainder of the slow and sear. I added some water into the water reservoir. I then closed the lid and let our temperatures come up to around 270 degrees. All right, so as I said, today we're gonna be using the slow and sear kettle. Franklin, he uses an offset cooker, and so if you have one of those, go ahead and use that because that is more exact to what he was doing. And so today, because I really enjoy cooking on kettle style cookers, let's go ahead and get these ribs onto the grill opposite the coals. And so when we place them onto our grill, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna press them together a little bit because this is how we want them to cook. We're also going to add in a few chunks of cherry wood into the grill just to add a little bit of delicious smoky flavor. Then we're going to close the lid and we're going to begin cooking these until they're probe tender. And we're going to come back at about an hour and a half just to look at them and give them a little spritz, and we'll go from there. We're about an hour and a half now into this cook, and our temperatures have been rock steady around that 270 degree mark, give or take about 5 degrees. And so let's go ahead now and open up the grill and take a look at our ribs. Oh, look at those. You can see there's a little bit of bone pullback starting to form, and we're definitely starting to get a little bit of that cherry wood smoke color onto them. And so the question that we're asking right now is, how does it look? Is it cooking too fast? Are the edges drying? What is going on with the whole slab of ribs? And you can see that these ones are cooking very nicely. And so we're gonna hit it with some apple cider vinegar just to hydrate some of those edges. Then we're gonna close the lid and we're gonna continue cooking this at 270 degrees for about 3 hours. And at that 3-hour mark, that's when we're gonna come back and we're gonna give it a little bit of sauce and then get it into our foil wrap. We're now 3 hours into this rib cook, and just like before, our grill temperature has been rock steady around 270 degrees. And so let's go open up the grill and take a look at these ribs. You can see that the bones are pulled back a little bit more than they were previously. It's got some nice color on it. And so what we're gonna be doing now is a little bit different than what I would normally do. We're gonna give the ribs a good spritz, and this is gonna help wash off a little bit of that smoke. It's gonna allow us to see the ribs for what they are before we put some sauce on it. All right, so the thing that I thought was unique with Aaron's style was that he sauced it right now as well. And he took half barbecue sauce, half apple cider vinegar, mixed it together to make a thin sauce. So we're gonna just spray that on. And then you'll notice that he loves to use his hands. He actually says, take your hand and rub that sauce around. And this allows you to feel the ribs, to see how they're cooking. It allows you to notice if there's any sharp edges or anything that's sort of off with those ribs. There we go, just like this. Doing that method, I was able to pull off this bone here that is just going to puncture the foil wrap when it comes time to wrapping. And so now I'm going to close up that lid. And we're gonna let these cook for another 10 minutes to allow that sauce to set up before we flip them over to sauce the underside. After about 10 minutes, our sauce should be set up by now, so let's open up the grill and flip them over and do the same to the other side. Oh yes, that's looking pretty nice. And so I'm gonna give it a quick spray with our apple cider vinegar. We're gonna flip this over. Again, we're gonna spray it down. And then we're gonna hit it again with our barbecue sauce. Go back in with our hand. All right, so we'll close up our lid, and while we wait for our sauce to set up, we'll go ahead and get our aluminum foil ready for our wrap. So after a few more minutes, the sauce on the underside of our ribs should be set up nicely. And so we're gonna take it off the kettle and place it into our foil wrap. There we go. So the first thing that we're gonna do with our wrap, we're gonna place some of our barbecue sauce down on that foil. And then we're gonna grab our ribs and we're gonna place them onto that foil. So I'm gonna spritz it again with that apple cider vinegar. Then we're gonna flip these over meat side down onto that barbecue sauce. And then we're gonna also spritz the backside. We'll throw a little bit of extra sauce on that backside as well. With our foil today, we're only using one sheet, and it just really comes down to how we wrap it. It will kind of act like two pieces of foil. So we're gonna take our foil and we're gonna wrap it over the one side. Just kind of press that in a bit. Grab the other side, and we're gonna use this line here. Then we're just gonna take our fingers and we're gonna press this in nicely. We're gonna fold this guy over. And grab this one, fold it just like that, nice and tight. We're gonna flip it around here. And so this is the side that has our bones, and we don't want those bones to puncture through that foil. And so again, we're gonna take our fingers and just kind of tuck that foil underneath those bones. And so by doing this, it's gonna provide a second layer when this folds over. And so just like that, our ribs are nice and tight in this foil. And so let's get it back on the kettle. And then we're gonna quickly close that lid back up, and we're gonna continue to cook these in that foil for about 2 to 2.5 hours until they're good and tender. Our ribs have been cooking in the kettle for just over 5 hours now, and they've been wrapped in that foil for about 2 hours and 15 minutes. I did check them already at that 2-hour mark just to see how tender they were becoming in that foil pouch, and I think they should be done. So let's open up the grill and take a look. And so to check for tenderness on these ribs, I'm not actually gonna open up that foil pouch today. I'm gonna just use my hands just to see if it's soft and pliable. And when I run my fingers up and down this rack of ribs, I can tell that those are done. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let them just hang out and rest on my cutting board for about 30 minutes, just to allow the temperatures of the rib to just come down a little bit. And so we'll come back in about 30 minutes, open up this foil pouch, and see how we did. So I need to be really careful when I cut these because I know that they're really tender. And so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna slice them face side up. Let's go in for the taste test and just see how these ribs actually taste. We have this one here. You can see it has a nice smoke ring on it, as well as there's just a lot of juices in these ribs. And so let's go for a bite. Guys, just look at that. It's incredibly tender and juicy. I'm gonna go for another taste. Yep. I'll take it any day. You know, even though these are a little bit overcooked for my preference, they're still an amazing rib. And you know, it just comes to tweaking. You know, Aaron Franklin, he cooks these all the time, and so he understands exactly how these ribs are gonna behave in his cooker. For me, this is the first time I've done it his method, and so I've learned a few things. And with every cook that we do, we should be learning new things. And so in terms of this cook specifically though, the flavor is on point. You can taste that little bit of sweetness from that barbecue sauce, but the richness from all of that rendered fat that's in these ribs, just like punching through. It's so good. You can taste that rub really nicely because it's a simple rub and it really just pulls out that pork flavor. This is a winning recipe for sure. And so if you've never tried Aaron Franklin's version of spare ribs before, make sure to give it a try because you won't be disappointed. These ribs are tender and juicy and full of classic barbecue flavors. These Aaron Franklin ribs are gonna have you licking your fingers in no time. Hey, if you wanna see more barbecue videos just like this one, make sure to hit that subscribe button as well as that notification bell. Also, special thank you to all my patrons out there who help support this channel every single week. Until next time, keep that fire lit and get cooking.